Yo, my people, it's your boy Erve Bukasa, EB the Kid. Welcome to The Journey. This is my new podcast on the White FM studios, at the White FM studios, on the White FM app. Guys, last week was a bit interesting, but you guys never got to see my face like in the physical. But now we got a cameraman. Shout out to the cameraman behind. He's here. We got Keisha in the studio as well. Everyone's here. I'm active. I'm giving everyone a shout out just so I can win the competition, man. But guys, last week I told a story about myself and about how I've come a long way and about how my journey has shaped me to be the person I am today. But today I want to tell you guys a different story, and it might not be as long because it's not necessarily my story to tell, but it will still be insightful and very inspirational to people who want to pursue a lot of things in their lives, and just to show you that you can achieve anything that you want in life, because that's the main reason of this podcast, the journey. Talk about people's journey, how far they've come. I was going to tell you guys today about John Wayne Gacy, but I opted not to because this is the radio and I feel like it might be a bit gruesome, because John Wayne Gacy was a clown killer. I thought I was going to talk about serial killers today, but I had a sudden change of heart because I wanted to do something more inspirational and not motivate anyone to be a serial killer. So guys, today I want to tell you guys about a guy named David. So David Omoreji Orobaso. He's a Nigerian lad that moved to, I wouldn't say moved, his family migrated to the UK. And he was born on the 5th of June, 1998 in Brixton. So at this time, Dave was born to a brother, and he had two brothers, his mom and his dad. At the time, his brother was about 8 and 5, respectively, both of them. And his dad was a pastor. But at the time, his dad needed to be deported back to Nigeria due to some complications with his visa, because his father thought he was on a missionary visa, but unfortunately he was on a visitor's visa. So from there, he had to be deported back to Nigeria. And now, Dave, being the normal guy he is, he doesn't realize he's been born into poverty in a way. And his mom's struggling. His mom then fled where they were staying, because where they were staying, it was basically like an apartment block. And they would do regular checks on visas and all those things. So in order to avoid being checked up, his mom decided to flee, and they were staying on buses for a few months. They were homeless basically, because they couldn't stay at home with fears of being deported back to Nigeria, and they didn't want to be deported at that time because our deportation is not vibes, bro. So David was just living life, living on buses, not knowing that he was born in poverty. And at about 7 years old, I think it started to settle on him, to realize that his father wasn't there. And luckily for him at this time, he had a brother. He had two brothers at least. And he had father figures, because his mom eventually moved to Streatham once they had sorted out their papers. And he was just living life. He had brothers. He was gassed. He was excited. He looked up to his brothers, because his brothers were sort of like the one father figures that he could look up to. But his brothers never got along. His brother always argued. And one of his brothers, his name was Christopher. So Christopher was very much into music. He was a rapper. He used to play piano. Pretty sure he played piano just like David. And he looked up to his brother. But then at the age of 11, after showing David so much about music, about playing piano, just about understanding how music works, his brother was then sent to prison. Due to, what was he charged for? He was charged for the rule of joint enterprise. That's basically, in the UK, if you are a part of a group that takes part in a killing, because his brother took part in a killing of a guy named Sofian, and he was 15 at the time. His brother was 15, and they all approached this guy Sofian, and they all just, knife crime is crazy in the UK, to say the least. I don't want to get too gruesome on here. And at that time, David lost the one father figure that he had, and he was sort of lost now, and he put everything that he had into music. And he's releasing songs, learning how to play piano. In his free time, he would read the dictionary, guys. So he would read the dictionary to learn new words. I never thought that out ever. Or someone reading the dictionary just to learn new words. So he'd do that. That obviously improved his vocabulary. His English was top tier. And then he further improved his music career, and he had one lost brother. And this brother was Benjamin, because obviously Christopher had gone to prison, and his dad had been deported, so that was his last father figure. I don't think he was as close to Benjamin as he was with Christopher, because Christopher taught him about music, Christopher taught him about life, and he just gave him a lot of advice, and it was someone that he looked up to. And then Benjamin was sent to prison in 2014 as well, due to a robbery. He done a robbery, and now Dave was lost because he had no one. He had absolutely no one to look up to in terms of a father figure. From there, he just pursued his music career, and he linked up with people like AJ Tracy. I don't know if you guys have heard of AJ Tracy. He's also a rapper, and they developed a good relationship. But the first time that I feel like we as a public began to know about Dave was in 2016 when he went on a UK platform. It's sort of like Hard FM, sort of like a radio station, but also recorded type beat. And in that session, they basically do freestyle. So Dave released a freestyle called Black Box Freestyle, and from there, everyone in the States was talking about Dave, like, yo, this guy Dave, he's famous, he's popular. And in this freestyle, he spoke about his brother, his mother, his father, his upbringing, and just about how he's come such a long way. And I feel like the pain in his voice and the lyricism and his social consciousness was just that beyond of a 16-year-old, because at this time he was 16. He was 17 or 16 at the time. So it was quite difficult for people older to fathom how this young boy could have so much knowledge on social things, not only on that, and just be so lyrically inclined. So David was then known because of that, and in 2017 he released his first ever EP, which is called 6 Parts. I don't know if you guys heard of Wanna Know, because Drake later then jumped on Wanna Know by Dave. Then from there he just kept pushing, and he kept reaching new levels. He released songs called Picture Me. He released songs called Panic Attack, which was later then added with a sequel called Heart Attack. If you guys know about Dave, you guys probably know I'm talking about Dave right now. Dave that sang Location. Send me the location. This year about vacation. Fly catching. If you guys know that song and you know that song with Burna Boy, if you don't, then you need to stop sleeping under a rock. But then in 2018, he was just releasing singles, and he released a song called Funky Friday featuring UK artist Fredo. Now, Funky Friday was a very historical song in the UK, because it was the first ever rap single to ever go number one in the UK. Because normally the people that will go number one would normally be like not people on the urban side, it's more white people like the Adeles and the Ed Sheerans. They would go number one in the UK because they could reach the masses. But in the UK, the black people are a minority, so it's very, very difficult for a UK number one song to be a rap song from a urban artist, because there's not enough of them to listen to it. I don't see it's very difficult and very rare that you'd see white people, or you would see back then white people listening to Dave or listening to rap music, because it just wasn't their thing. It just didn't relate to them. They couldn't relate to migrating to the UK. They couldn't relate to struggles as a black man, because that's what hip hop's about. Hip hop's basically about struggling as a black man coming up. And Dave was able to bring it up and bring it across in Funky Friday and become number one for the first time ever as a UK artist, as a UK urban artist. And that's when he started to reach some match. That's about the time when I was like, yo, Dave is actually going to be that guy. Like, he can do lyrically inclined song, he can do vibey songs, he can tell a story. Like, what can't this man do? In 2018, he also released, in 2017, he released an EP called Game Over. Now, in this EP, he had a song called How I Met My Ex. This is probably one of the saddest songs ever. How he speaks about how he met this girl, and she was a photographer at the time, and he stumbled on one of her photos on Twitter, and from there he went to go search her Instagram profile and wanted to see how she looks, and he was very much attracted to this girl. And at that point, he didn't want to message her, because he talks about how he's when you become a rapper, you're sort of popular, and you don't want to DM a girl and then she doesn't reply because you have an ego. So he speaks about that. So he had an ego, so he didn't reach out to the girl, but eventually the girl reached out to him, and he was so excited, he was so gassed, and he talks about their love story, how they build up a love, how they get closer, how they meet each other's families, how they get intimate, but he doesn't go into details because he says their families are obviously listening, so he doesn't want to be disrespectful and go too in detail. Dave's love story then ends when he sort of gets busy. As a rapper, you're on the road, you're busy, and he's not supporting his girlfriend enough. He's not messaging her every day, and he fears that someone else could fall in love with her and someone else could give her what he's not giving her. From there, he decides to just cut things off. But at the end of the song, the last part, he says he's got a brave face, so you'll never know that it hurts just as much when you let them go. So at that time, he didn't realize how much it would hurt once he let his girlfriend go that he loved at the time. But he thought it was a necessity. He thought it was a necessity because he was so busy and he couldn't maintain the relationship anymore. He also released a song called Question Time. So Question Time is a very political song. He talks about the government. The government doesn't deliver for the African people. The government doesn't deliver for the nurses, especially because his mom was a nurse at the time. So his mom was coming home like for 3-4 hours, sleeping for 3-4 hours, then doing another shift. So he felt like the nurses in the UK were giving 100% and were grinding, but they were not getting paid enough. And it's actually kind of bizarre to think that health workers, people that keep us alive, are not getting paid enough. So he touched on a lot of deep things, and at this time he was establishing himself as a sort of a social commentator, like someone that would speak for the youth, someone that had a voice for the youth. But at the same time, Dave was also recognized by the streets. Now, he had a close friend called Harry at the time, because he says when Harry got murdered, man was so emotional. I had some good intentions, but I couldn't word it. So he was very close to the streets. So in the streets, they don't cooperate with the police. They don't like the police. You guys know how it is in the hip hop scene. They don't like the police. So one of his friends, Harry, was stabbed to death. And that was very gruesome. We are on the radio. Sorry guys, if that's a bit insensitive. But he was unfortunately murdered. And Dave was so emotional that he went online and he said, the government needs to do a stop and search. So basically a stop and search is when they stop you, they check, do you have a knife, do you have weed on you? And the streets was very disappointed in Dave for that, and a lot of people were like, no, how can he say that? Because they looked at the street life as a way to survive and not necessarily as a crime. They looked at selling weed to feed their family as a way to survive. They didn't look at it in a negative way. But I feel like when it came to a point where it was affecting Dave negatively, he decided to take action, and he didn't know what to say because he was so emotional. He was so overcome with emotion that he put aside his street, like his street side of him. He wanted the government to add more police, to do more stop and searches. And that time he got a lot of backlash and people were very disappointed. But nevertheless, it didn't stop Dave from flourishing and becoming the artist he is today. From 2018, he released Funky Friday, like I said. He released big songs such as 1800 with Heady One. You guys know about Heady One. People probably don't know any of these artists, but it's not really about the artist. It's more about the journey of the man named Dave. In 2019, he released his debut album called Psychodrama. Now, this has to be a masterpiece of an album. It starts with a story about... It starts with a song called Psycho and ends with a song called Drama. So in the song Psycho, he goes through different emotions, different beats. He talks about how his mind is so all over the place and how he wants all the pain to stop, how he always dreamt of the fame, but it's not exactly what he expected. He speaks in the album about where he grew up, Streatham. He speaks about location. This is basically a song about just about vibes, just about partying. He has deep songs, he has soft songs, and he has a song called Leslie as well, which tackles gender-based violence. And once the way he worded it, the way he brought it across, it's 8 minutes, but it keeps you captivated for the full 8 minutes. And that album went number one as well. That album cemented him as probably one of the biggest artists in the UK, apart from the likes of Stormzy and now Central C, which came after Dave. So at the time in 2019, he was the hottest. Everyone was saying Dave is going to be the greatest ever, but Stormzy was still at the forefront at that time. And the thing about Dave, though, he releases a song, but then he dips, like he goes ghost. So it sort of keeps you craving for more. And it makes you want to come back and like, I want to hear more of Dave. Like, where's all the Dave leaks? Where's all the Dave songs? And after releasing his debut album in 2019, he went quiet for a long time. He released a song called Paper Cut after that, and he went quiet for a long time. But then he slowly came out and started releasing features. And eventually in 2021, he released his second album called Wait, which is We All Alone in This Together, where he tackles the issue of migration, of xenophobia, of knife crime, of how people try to survive. We then also realize that Dave reveals to us that maybe his father, he doesn't necessarily say it outright, but he says it in a way in which is very vague. Maybe his father wasn't necessarily deported because of his visa. Maybe his father was deported because his father was abusing his mom. So despite all these things that they faced, he still was able to make it out. And that's my story for today, guys. That's the journey for today. I just want to inspire like people that feel like they have so much adversity in life, despite Dave's adversity, despite his brothers going to prison, despite him not being able to just have a normal life, if you say. And this is one boy, he says in Heart Attack, he says, growing up, I had it far from perfect, but no one did, so I'm a normal person. So in that boy, he basically says like how life wasn't easy for him growing up, but it wasn't easy for anybody else. But I feel like his story is different. I feel like he's one of the biggest artists in the UK right now. He's done songs with Drake, hopefully like not just a remix, crazy. I work for Mr. Price. But yeah, guys, don't forget to like, comment. You see the YouTuber in me, I just wanted to say, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. That's been the story of Dave. I left out quite a bit because we don't have 16 hours. But if you guys want to read more about it, go read online. The artist, as Dave, has more to his story between losing his brothers, losing his father, sticking by his mother. He bought his mom Aston Martin as well, just so you guys know. He's bought his mom a house. He's just doing crazy things. So if you want to be inspired by someone, this is definitely a positive role model in the black community and just in the urban community as a whole. So, thank you to all of him for having me, and I'll see you guys next week.